Hey there, everyone! Welcome back to our health channel, where we're all about helping seniors live their healthiest, most vibrant lives. Today, we're diving into something that might just blow your mind. Your refrigerator could be quietly sabotaging your health. I know, it sounds wild, right? That trusty fridge in your kitchen, the one you rely on to keep your food fresh, might actually be doing more harm than good for some of your favorite foods. We're talking about 9 common foods that many of us, especially those of us over 60, store in the fridge without a second thought. But here's the kicker. Refrigerating these foods can lead to bacterial growth, nutrient loss, and even some pretty scary chemical changes. It's not just about taste or texture, though those take a hit too. It's about how these mistakes could affect your stomach, your heart, and even your brain. Did you know that over 99% of adults over 60 are making these storage mistakes without realizing the damage they're causing? Some experts even suggest that our obsession with keeping everything in the fridge might be linked to the rise in chronic illnesses. So, today, we're pulling back the curtain to reveal the science behind why these 9 foods don't belong in your fridge, and how to store them properly to keep their nutrients intact and your body thriving. Stick with me, because we're going to cover each one in detail, and I promise you'll be surprised, especially by number 2 on our list. All the info we're sharing is backed by peer-reviewed studies, and we've got the sources linked for you to check out. Before we jump in, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. How old are you, and have you ever noticed that certain foods just don't taste or feel right after being in the fridge? Drop your thoughts below. We're reading every single comment and offering personalized tips. And if you find this helpful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more health advice tailored for seniors. Alright, let's get started. First up, let's talk about potatoes. I know. Potatoes are a staple in so many households, whether you're mashing them, frying them, or tossing them in a hearty stew. But storing them in the fridge is a big mistake, and here's why. When you put potatoes in the cold environment of your refrigerator, something called cold-induced sweetening happens. The starches in the potatoes start turning into sugars, and while that might sound harmless, it's not just about a sweeter taste. When you cook those refrigerated potatoes at high heat, like when you're making fries or roasting them, those sugars react with amino acids to form acrylamide. Now, acrylamide isn't just a tongue twister, it's classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as a probable human carcinogen. That's right. Your fridge could be turning your potatoes into something potentially toxic. A study from the University of Idaho found that potatoes stored in the fridge for just 2 weeks had a 300% increase in sugar content. That's 3 times the sugar, and it happens faster than you'd think. They tested over 500 potato samples, and every single variety showed the same results. Beyond the health risks, the texture of refrigerated potatoes takes a nosedive. The cold breaks down their cell structure, leaving them gritty and unpleasantly sweet. Ever wondered why your mashed potatoes sometimes taste off or feel weird? That's the fridge working against you, destroying the potatoes at a cellular level. So, how should you store them? Keep your potatoes in a cool, dark place, ideally between 45 and 50 degrees Fahrenheit. A pantry cellar, or even a cardboard box in a closet works great. The key is darkness, because light triggers the production of solanine, a green, toxic substance that makes potatoes unsafe to eat. Store them in a breathable basket or paper bag, never plastic, as it traps moisture and leads to decay. Here's a pro tip most folks don't know: keep your potatoes at least 3 feet away from onions. Both release gases that cause the other to spoil faster. When stored right, potatoes can last up to 3 months, compared to just 2 weeks in the fridge. So, let's keep those spuds safe and delicious! Next on our list is bread. I bet a lot of you are surprised by this one, because who hasn't popped a loaf of bread in the fridge to keep it fresh? But here's the truth: your refrigerator is actually making your bread go stale faster. It sounds counterintuitive, but the science backs it up. When you refrigerate bread, a process called starch retrogradation speeds up. This is where the starch molecules in the bread crystallize and push out moisture, making the bread hard and dry. A study from the Institute of Food Technologists found that bread stored in the fridge stales 6 times faster than bread kept at room temperature. They measured the stiffness of breadcrumbs over time and found that refrigerated bread turned hard and crumbly in just 3 days, while bread at room temperature lasted a full week. The cold also destroys the volatile organic compounds that give fresh bread its amazing smell and flavor. That's why refrigerated bread often tastes like cardboard. Your taste buds aren't lying to you. So, what's the best way to store bread? Keep it at room temperature in a paper bag or a bread box. You want a container that holds in just enough moisture to keep the bread soft, but allows enough air circulation to prevent mold. If you can't finish a loaf within a week, here's a trick: slice it up and freeze it. Freezing is much better than refrigerating because it happens so quickly that ice crystals don't have time to damage the bread structure. When you're ready to eat, pop those frozen slices straight into the toaster. Don't let them thaw first, as that's when moisture issues creep in. The result: bread that tastes almost as good as fresh. By keeping your bread out of the fridge, you'll enjoy that soft, flavorful loaf for longer. Now, let's talk about honey, which might just be nature's most perfect food. Did you know that archaeologists have found honey in Egyptian tombs that's over 3,000 years old, and it's still perfectly edible? Honey is a natural preservative, thanks to its antibacterial properties, but refrigerating it can ruin it in just weeks. When you store honey in the fridge, the cold causes it to crystallize quickly, turning that silky, golden liquid into a hard, gritty mess that's tough to use. While crystallization isn't dangerous, it's not the only issue. The cold and humidity in your fridge create condensation every time you open the jar, and moisture is honey's worst enemy. A study from the National Honey Board found that honey stored below 50 degrees Fahrenheit loses up to 35% of its antibacterial compounds. These compounds are what make honey a natural healer. Ancient cultures even used it to treat wounds. The cold also messes with honey's flavor, breaking down the 880+ unique compounds that give it that rich, distinctive taste. Your expensive raw honey could end up tasting like cheap syrup. So, how do you store honey? Keep it in a tightly sealed jar at room temperature, ideally between 64 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Avoid direct sunlight, which can degrade its quality. If your honey does crystallize, don't toss it! Just place the jar in warm water and stir gently. It'll return to its liquid state without losing its benefits. Here's a fun fact: darker honey has more antioxidants than lighter varieties, but it's also more sensitive to cold, so refrigeration is especially harmful to those precious nutrients. Keep your honey on the counter, and it'll stay perfect for years. Coffee lovers, brace yourselves, because number 6 is going to hit you hard. Storing your coffee beans or grounds in the fridge is one of the worst things you can do to your morning brew. Coffee is incredibly porous, meaning it soaks up flavors and smells from everything around it. That forgotten cheese, those leftovers from last night's dinner, all those fridge odors get absorbed into your coffee, making your morning cup taste strange. But that's just the start. The constant temperature swings in your fridge cause condensation on the beans, which can lead to mold growth and faster aging. A study from the Specialty Coffee Association found that refrigerated coffee beans lose 60% of their aromatic compounds in just 1 week. The oils in coffee, which are responsible for most of its flavor, solidify in the cold, making them harder to extract during brewing. The result: weak, flavorless coffee that doesn't do justice to those pricey beans you splurged on. So, how should you store coffee? Keep it in an airtight, opaque container at room temperature, ideally between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Light and oxygen are coffee's enemies, so an opaque container is key. Buy coffee in small amounts you'll use within 2 weeks, because once you open the bag, the clock starts ticking. If you need to store coffee for longer, the freezer is actually better than the fridge, but there's a catch: freeze it once, in small, airtight portions, and never refreeze it. Repeated freezing and thawing causes moisture damage that ruins the beans. By keeping your coffee at room temperature, you'll enjoy a richer, more flavorful cup every morning. Let's move on to garlic, which is number 5 on our list. Garlic is a powerhouse for health, especially for seniors, thanks to its antiviral, antibacterial, and heart-healthy properties. But storing it in the fridge is a recipe for trouble. The cold, humid environment causes garlic to sprout, and those green shoots aren't just bitter, they can upset your stomach. Even worse, the damp conditions in the fridge can lead to mold growth, and some of these molds produce mycotoxins, which are highly toxic. A study from the University of California, Davis, found that refrigerated garlic loses half of its allicin content in just 10 days. Allicin is the compound that gives garlic its medicinal benefits, so you're literally throwing away half of what makes garlic so good for you. The cold also breaks down garlic's cell walls, turning it mushy and hard to chop. If you've ever tried mincing refrigerated garlic and ended up with a sticky paste, you know what I'm talking about. So, what's the right way to store garlic? Keep it in a dry, well-ventilated spot at 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit. A mesh bag or basket is perfect, as garlic needs to breathe. Avoid plastic containers or direct sunlight, which can cause sprouting. A whole head of garlic can last up to 6 months when stored properly, but once you break it open, use the cloves within 10 days for the best flavor. Here's a game changer for your cooking: garlic at room temperature releases its flavors more easily than cold garlic. Because its essential oils stay liquid, your dishes will taste noticeably better with properly stored garlic. Number 4 is bananas, and this one's a big deal because bananas and refrigerators just don't mix. Bananas are tropical fruits, so they're not built for cold temperatures. When you put them in the fridge, they suffer what scientists call chilling injury. The cold causes enzymes to leak, cell membranes to burst, and the fruit to start breaking down from the inside. A study from the Queensland Department of Agriculture found that bananas stored below 56 degrees Fahrenheit lose 80% of their vitamin C in just 5 days. They also stop producing new nutrients as they ripen, which is a big loss because bananas are packed with healthy compounds. Those black, mushy spots you see on refrigerated bananas aren't just ugly. They're a sign that the fruit's defenses have failed, leaving it vulnerable to mold and bacteria. So, how do you store bananas? Keep them at room temperature, between 56 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and hang them on a banana hook to prevent bruising. Bananas produce ethylene gas, which helps them ripen, so they need good air circulation. Want to control how fast they ripen? Put them in a paper bag with an apple to speed things up, or wrap each stem in plastic wrap to slow it down. That reduces ethylene gas release by up to 40%. If your bananas are perfectly ripe and you can't eat them right away, you can refrigerate them for 1 or 2 days, but the skin will turn black. For longer storage, peel and freeze them for smoothies. They actually make creamier smoothies than fresh bananas because of their texture. Onions are next, and this is one of the most common mistakes people make. Storing whole onions in the fridge is a disaster waiting to happen. Your refrigerator's humidity is usually around 95%, but onions need a dry environment with 65% humidity or less. That extra moisture seeps into the onion's layers, creating the perfect breeding ground for mold, including black mold, which produces aflatoxin, one of the most carcinogenic substances known. Even before mold forms, the cold turns the onion starches into sugars, with a Texas University study showing a 270% increase in sugar content after 2 weeks in the fridge. This changes the flavor and texture, making onions soft, mushy, and overly sweet. Goodbye, perfect French onion soup. Refrigerated onions also lose their ability to caramelize properly because ice crystals damage their cells. So, store whole onions in a cool, dry, ventilated spot. 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit is ideal. Use a mesh bag basket or even pantyhose, but never plastic as onions need to breathe. Keep them away from potatoes as their gases cause mutual spoilage, and avoid direct sunlight to prevent sprouting. If you've chopped an onion, store it in an airtight container in the fridge for up to 7 days, as the cut surface is prone to bacteria. But whole onions, keep them out of the fridge. Now, let's talk about the one that might shock you the most: tomatoes, our number 2. I know so many of us keep tomatoes in the fridge, thinking it'll keep them fresh longer, but the science says otherwise. A study from the University of Florida made a jaw-dropping discovery. Refrigerating tomatoes doesn't just ruin their flavor and texture, it actually turns off their genes. Specifically, the genes responsible for producing flavor molecules shut down when tomatoes are stored below 54 degrees Fahrenheit, and they never fully recover, even if you bring the tomatoes back to room temperature. The study looked at 25,000 genes across hundreds of tomatoes, and found that cold storage makes them lose their identity as tomatoes, turning them into nutrient-poor, flavorless shells. For seniors, this is especially concerning because tomatoes are a top source of lycopene, an antioxidant that protects against heart disease and certain cancers. Refrigeration reduces lycopene by up to 65%, and it kills the enzymes needed for your body to absorb what's left. The cold also creates tiny ice crystals that puncture the tomatoes' cell walls, leaving them gritty and mealy. So, how do you store tomatoes? Keep them at room temperature between 55 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, stem side down to block bacteria and moisture. They need indirect light to maintain their nutrients, so avoid dark cabinets but keep them out of direct sun. Never store them in plastic bags as trapped ethylene gas speeds up rotting. Use ripe tomatoes within 3 to 5 days, or make sauce and freeze it. Lycopene is actually more bioavailable in cooked tomato products. By keeping your tomatoes out of the fridge, you'll preserve their flavor and health benefits. Finally, we've saved the most critical for last: avocados. If there's one food that should never, ever go in the fridge, it's avocados. These creamy, nutrient-packed fruits are loaded with over 20 vital nutrients, including healthy fats like oleic acid, which are crucial for brain health in seniors. But refrigeration triggers a process called lipid peroxidation, where those healthy fats break down into toxic free radicals. A Stanford University study found that refrigerated avocados lose 90% of their antioxidant activity in just 4 days. That means you're losing the vitamins E and C that support eye health, reduce inflammation, and help your body absorb nutrients from other foods. The cold also activates an enzyme called polyphenol oxidase, which eats away at the avocado from the inside, turning it brown, stringy, and bitter. The creamy texture we love becomes watery and greasy, making it impossible to create good guacamole. So, store unripe avocados at room temperature, 65 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, in a bowl on your counter. They need air circulation to ripen properly, so skip plastic bags. To speed up ripening, put them in a paper bag with a banana. If you need to store a ripe avocado, you can refrigerate it for 2 or 3 days, but the quality will suffer. For cut avocados, brush the flesh with lemon juice, keep the pit in, and store it with a slice of onion in an airtight container. The onion's sulfur prevents browning without affecting flavor. This keeps cut avocados fresh at room temperature for up to 2 days. So, there you have it. The 9 foods you should never store in your refrigerator: potatoes, bread, honey, coffee, garlic, bananas, onions, tomatoes, and avocados. By making these simple storage changes, you're not just saving money on groceries. You're protecting your health by preserving the nutrients your body needs to stay strong and vibrant. Every vitamin, every antioxidant, every healthy fat matters, especially as we age. Don't let your fridge undo all your efforts to eat well. I'd love to hear from you now. Which of these foods surprised you the most? Have you been refrigerating any of them for years without knowing the harm? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. We're here to help with personalized advice. If you found this video helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more tips on staying healthy in your golden years. Your body deserves the best care, and it starts with smart storage. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time!